This is actually one that I found in the ocean. In the ocean. And it's, and I figured it out. This, from here, all the way down to there, is about the length from the tippy-most part of Sweden all the way down to Cairo, like in the real world. So think of it like that's the point, like that's the highest fucking point of Sweden. And right there is Cairo in Egypt, right near the Nile. That's how long it is, right? As for its width, from here to here, just from that point, is like, oh my god, what's that name, the place in Portugal? The far western side of Spain, all the way, its coast. I forgot the name of that city. It's not Madrid, it's the one that's along the coast to Ukraine. So it's like this entire area is about the size of Europe. And a little bit of like northern Africa. That's how big it is. And that was measuring at, I think, 140 miles as an inch, I believe. So that makes me think that the rest of the world, I mean, you got to think, like, if you look at the map of Europe and then how big it is compared to the size of the earth, like there's still Africa, there's still 2 other continents, there's like, what is that place called? Australia, New Zealand, and all those other little countries, Philippines and shit. We still got a surface scratch here, man. Like there's definitely, I mean, like Alandria here, which is a little bit more finished on this map, kinda. That place alone, it's got to be pretty massive. Like that might be, like that's kind of the idea what this was. Like this might be our Africa. It's maybe just giant fucking continent full of tribals. You know what I mean? I don't know yet, but it's interesting to think about. Now that all makes sense. Because I think when I drew this map here, I was like, oh, that's probably the size of like England, you know, and then this will be Europe and Africa. But then I just realized, like, well, I mean, it's quite a large place. A lot of people live here. A lot of people except for your grandma, of course. Because fuck her. And her sister, too. I did. I mean, I didn't. Very seamless zoom. What's going on, guys and gals and midgets and tall people? I'm out of here. What is going on today? Well, we are off of work today. We were off of work yesterday too because we didn't feel very well. I wasn't gonna run back and forth to the bathroom constantly. I'm sick of doing that shit where it's like, got the fucking shits and you don't feel good and you're like in and out, in and out, in and out. Like, no. It's like I've only been here for 2 hours and I've been in the bathroom for an hour. So I went home. I have kind of hit a point, like there's so much to do still. There's so much to do when it comes to the world of lore building and stuff like that. Timelines. I gave the timeline to Jacob. He will do what he can, hopefully, and going forward from that. Myself, as I said, as there's still a lot to do, a lot of little projects to do. There's still that map project. There's still finishing the major map, which is mostly done. It's just the white, I've been told, makes it stand out too much, which I'm like, I get it. I just don't want to fucking color anymore. I'm so sick of coloring. I got to put the fucking compass on there. Then that'll be done. There's little lore things that I could work on, but I feel like we're at a good point with all of it. At least for now. Then there is the story behind me that I'm working on, which is the story of Odysseus. And I've just been debating, like, okay, do I release the story of Odysseus first because I dipped my toe in book 1 and I learned how to kind of write a little bit, and maybe if I write this story, which will be more of, it won't be as long, it's not like a crazy, it'll just kind of almost be a one-off story, release that first because I got more skills, which will give me time to write in book 1 a little bit better and hone it and stuff like that. Because you got to remember, when I wrote book 1, I had never written before. This is the first time I've done any of that shit. You know, obviously I've never written a book before, but I've never wrote a story. I never plotted. I never did timelines. Like, that was my first toe being dipped into the fucking ocean. And it's like, every time I reread it, there's like huge sections I'm just so not happy with. Or like I have to change. Like there's already 3 parts alone that are massive parts, huge, that I'm not happy with. But when I change them, it's going to have to affect a following scene and then perhaps another scene. So it's like the book is nowhere near where I feel like it's ready. And it's, before I hear anything different, it's more like it will fuck the story up. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, if I leave it alone or just edit it slightly, it does not make sense because I wrote it in the dark. It's my own fault. I didn't plot it well enough. I'm just really in kind of the throes of it with that. And I've been ignoring it I wouldn't say ignoring it, but I'm letting it fester in my head, and I have to pull some notes that I've been thinking of, and I really got to hone those scenes, because there's just a few scenes that I got to fix, man. They're not a whole lot. They're just really important scenes. They're like scenes that will make sense with the whole story. Like, it's just really important. So my thinking is, because I know that's going to take a long time to fix, what if I wrote my version of The Hobbit? My like normal sized story of how everything came to be. Why not? Because the reasoning I'm thinking that is because this story of Odysseus here will follow the original concept that I had for book 1 that I abandoned years ago. That's what this is going to follow. So it's going to stay true to my original concept of what the story was meant to be, is what this is going to do. And I think in some ways, because I abandoned huge sections of it, but there's certain sections I haven't, it's going to have a really cool echo, is what I'm trying to say. And it'll allow me to have a character to mess around with that is a little bit more earthly, a little bit more worldly, where he's, oh God, what was he by this point? I would say in his mid-20s to 30s. Like, he's lived more of a life. It just allows me to just put him in fucked up situations where he can fight, where it's like, sometimes with Eris I'm like, well, he's never held a sword. I don't know, he's not gonna know what to do. Like, instincts could kick in, sure, but I just purposely didn't want him to get into fights and shit. This guy, I can do that. And it's a little bit more of a, it's a rom-com, no. It's more of a rom-com, they call it, romantic comedy. I wouldn't say it's more fun, but it's more like adventure-y in a sense. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And I'm thinking maybe releasing that before I release the other one. I don't know yet. I don't know. This is when I really, really wish I had an editor. Like, because it makes sense, man. I need someone with a different focus. I need someone else that, like, just to fucking actually read the damn thing and tell me, like, where I stand. Because it's so hard when you feel like you're doing this alone. Like, I got Kevin and Jacob to help. They have like their own things they're doing, and they have like their own, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say jobs, but there are things that they do in the book. I need someone to help me edit this shit. It's hard. I'm so stuck right now. I don't know what to do. So that's kind of why I'm like thinking about dipping my toe here and releasing that first to allow something to grow from it. It's not like it's going to be a kid's book or anything, but it's definitely going to have elements that will come, that will be important later on. Because I'm feeling like I'm getting to the point now, as I was saying in the beginning, where the projects are starting to wind down. I don't really have a whole lot that I need to really think about, except for consolidate the Forgotten King stories throughout all my journals and see what I can do with that. I got that documentary on the back burner. It's not an active thought, but I do need to do it. That I don't know when I can fucking do. And then I got like I said, that map overlay that I want to do with the corkboard. So those are like 3 huge projects already. Then I got the fucking timeline, like I said, so that's another one. We have to fix Cyphers' whole section near the end of the book. That's going to be a whole ass thing. And like I said, I got to fix multiple scenes in the book with Eris. So there's a shit ton of like things set above me. And it's like, okay, writing documentary, fucking back burner. Like, we're just going to leave that, we're not going to fuck with that. Map overlay, I'd like to get it done, but I can't keep investing time, and I wish I could pass that off. Like, here's a corkboard, somebody, and then, like, this, I want the map to be on the corkboard somehow. I have ideas in my mind, but it would just take so fucking long. If I can set those aside, the map overlay, the writing documentary, the Consolidating the Forgotten King story has a direct influence with this here. Why I'm looking, because I have to look and see his journey of Odysseus, first of all, but the Forgotten King as well. So that's why it's important. It's the snake in the portal, man. It's the origin story of how everything came to be. I mean, not of mankind, but the origin story of the plight. And because I'm doing that, I have to do more research on the world at the time, and I have that map I showed, the original map I showed on the board, where I was like, I found the old names of places and shit, and I was able to determine where things are. I had to do that because that's kind of going to be important throughout that book as well, not book 2. And so that's kind of set me up on that journey. I just have to fucking think of what I want to do. Now, getting into the book, the main Eris' story, this is just, okay, I'm just sitting at this crossroads here. Is it procrastination? Perhaps. But at the same time, letting things grow and fester have really, really helped the main story, because it hones it, and it answers questions. Like, something will come up and I'm like, oh my god, thank god I addressed that, or else this book would have been out there and I would have been fucked, you know what I mean? Like, or something of that nature. So it's like, okay, there's that element, but then there's also the same element of like, well, you release the book 1, we'll call it book 1, the story of Eris. And then from that point, he goes to another, and then another. You have a backstory here. You want to release that later? You know, are you going to do that Star Wars thing where you're going to jump halfway through the story, and then you're going to go back and say, this is how it all came to be? Because, okay, think of it like this. Story of Eris takes about 1, 2, 3, at least 4 books. 4 or 5. I'm thinking. That will be like the original trilogy of Star Wars. New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That's what that is. This is like the prequels. It's the same thing. It's just like, this is what happened before, and this is what made everything the way it's going to happen in the next, in Eris' story. So it's like, do I follow that idea of starting at the end You know, like I also agree with what George Lucas said I heard once, where it's like, you know, he said he enjoyed just jumping into something halfway through, and that's also because of like influences of TV serials at the time and stuff. I also agree with that. I do like jumping right in the middle of something and having to fucking figure it out. So, should I go that route and release book 1 with Eris? And this here will be like written way better, but it'll come out later? I don't know. This is exactly the moment, like I said, I need to talk. I wish I had a fucking editor. Or someone that just like understood a little bit more how this shit works. Because I am just goddamn lost. An apothecary letter. I'm trying to think what to do here. Because, man, there's just so much. Like fixing book 1. There is so much. What does that seriously say 16 minutes already? Holy shit. Damn, that went by quick. There's a hell of a lot to do in book 1. And it's like, it's so, for me, the scenes I have to fix. It's fucking like, I don't know how to explain it, man. I feel like a writer might be able to say it, and I'm like, yes. It's like jumping back into something that's chaotic. So jumping back into something that's like been done, and like jumping into something that's an old sensation, an old feeling, an old thought. And you have to like rewire your mind into that moment, and it's so hard. It's like, and then you mix that with having no like I wouldn't say energy, but no mental capacity. It almost feels like I'm just like, I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I could do this and get a good outcome. And you mix that with like, I don't feel creative. You know, so it's like, you know, I've had practices where I like to start writing. I do writing prompts to invoke, to get into something. I'll do that, but it's so hard to write because I fucking hate writing sometimes. And it's like, the moment, I don't think I've ever really liked writing at all. It is one of the hardest fucking things to do. It's so difficult. For me, at least. Some people, maybe it's not, but I just find it's so hard because when I'm doing it, I am pouring so much. It's not a fun thing, you know. I'm not telling a fun story and thinking like, ooh, okay, this will happen, that. I'm pouring like my life essence into it. I'm pouring like so much of like, I don't know how to explain it, of this deep fucking element of my psyche. You know, so for me, like when I'm about to jump in and work on this Martis shit, or work on the Cypher stuff, I just know, like, dude, you're gonna like, this is hard. It's gonna make you sick. It's gonna be so tough to like get into that. I don't know how to do it any other way. You can't passively write, you know, like, we'll just plot it out. You'll have a fun little story, and you know, like, I'm telling a story on purpose, you know, not because it's enjoyable. That's fucking so difficult to do, and I find it with everything in life. And I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to figure out why. Like, you know, working on my truck or something, I'm just like, I don't want to fucking do it because I know it's going to involve. It's scary because it's like, oh, you know, you only got at most 2 days if you do it in the right to not need it, and like you don't know what you could run into and like how to do it properly and needing a place to do it. Like there's always all these little things that stop me from doing something, as if like I'm afraid to do it. It's all these unknowns that make it leery to go in, if that makes sense. And in my life, I've found ways to bypass it. I find ways to just go through it. And I've had moments of tentativeness. Sorry. I've had that time, and then I've done it, I've accomplished it, but I don't feel anything. It doesn't feel good. Like, yeah, I fucking did that. Like, I guess I've never really felt that before. Even when I finished this book, finish writing the first section like I did, I didn't feel anything. I was just like, God, I'm still in shock from it. Like, I don't know if I don't feel accomplished. I don't feel like I did something, or like when I do things with my truck, things that were scary to do because I don't know anything about vehicles, and it seems like every time I would like change spark plugs or fucking do an oil change, there's this crazy sound that happens and then it stops. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, or anything else, brakes or this and that. I don't get done and go like, yeah, I fucking did that. It's almost like, fucking, this is just too much. Like, I don't know. I can't find happiness when it comes to completing something. Not that I ever wanted to complete anything, but because I do complete it, because of outside pressures, I feel more like it's not enjoyable. It's just another fucking thing. Now I gotta do something else. That's gotta be the hardest part. It's so demoralizing. I don't know how to get out of that headspace, but it's just doing it isn't working. It's just kind of like delaying, like, yeah, you're doing something that you're supposed to be, but it doesn't bring you anything. There's no like fulfillment, it feels like, with most of life, honestly. Just nothing feels like it matters. And I know that's depression. And I know I have crippling fucking depression, but it can't just be that, That can't be the only thing that takes away from everything else. Like, because I'm trying to like think about my life and like where this might have all come from, and that might take some time. So I'll save it here. I won't do that because then it'll just be sitting thinking for like 20 minutes. But I think being depressed like that has really hindered just about everything I've ever done. My drive is so low when it comes to doing things, but it's high in other areas. Like with women, dude, like my drive is way up there. Like I can fucking, like that's what I really want to do. It's chasing women around and stuff. I know I shouldn't, but that's the place I do have drive that never diminishes. And I know that's connected to depression in a way of like feeling wanted and appreciated and feeling like making a woman laugh because validation and stuff. I know it's because it's built into the depression, chasing women around and shit. So for me, that's why that makes sense. Like that's why your drive is high there. Your drive isn't really high when it comes to writing. Why is that? Well, what is writing if, like I've been saying, it's taking my real story and putting it to a fantasy in this instance. It's my viewpoints and my interests and all that getting put into this place to live. It is philosophy, it is mythology, it is the idea of human growth. Sounds like just being afraid to grow, right? Being afraid to change. And that's probably the hardest thing, is trying to find change in yourself and wanting to do it. Because at the end of the day, it's like it's a dark road. It's like, okay, you can change where you're at now, but the road that you must travel to change is not lit. And it's not linear either. It's endless. It's like there's forks upon forks upon forks, and it's just like, fucking, what do you do? The modern philosophy, as I've seen it, the modern idea of what life is, what's in the media now, what's in the arts and all that shit, doesn't help that. It makes people feel bad for who they are, and it makes judgment calls on who's right and who's wrong. So people that feel the way I feel are a silent majority. And so that affects, like, what is life? How do you navigate it? Our mythologies are being destroyed because people think that they have some other message that scares them, whatever that may be. Mostly race or gender or sexuality. We're just so fixated on that shit that's ruining the story. And the story's purpose is to give guidance, to show someone in that moment. And that's partially why I write the story that I'm writing with Eris, because you get to witness that. He is an embodiment of, like, how I feel, like just a child being toted around by somebody, just a child that doesn't know what to do in my younger years. And as I'm getting older, it's like, I still don't fucking know how to feel better. I'm trying to figure out how to be okay. And, like, I'm not searching for this fucking, like, holy grail of, like, fucking pleasure or happiness. I'm not searching that hard for an intangible thing. I'm searching for a place where I can constantly keep continuing to try and wanting to try. I just want to get on this fucking starting line, it seems like. But for whatever reason, it's so difficult to even find it. You know, the starting line of life. And yeah, you may already be in the race, but I guess what I mean is, like, the mindset of wanting to constantly better myself. That is so fucking difficult to, like, just to get on that wavelength of whatever that is. I think everything I'm doing, it's just so weird, man. Like, I'm trying to, like, think of how I can really say this, because I'm working in fantasy. As a writer working in fantasy, you have this, like, these two things, it feels like. You're writing a story about a character who reflects your own life and reflects your own beliefs, and there's a mythology, and, you know, there's all that shit I said. There's a purpose to it. You want to show growth, you want to show what life could be, and the pitfalls. You want to show the good side of humanity, the bad side, all that stuff. You have the human story that's reflected by the writer. But in fantasy, then you have this whole other side of this fucking place. You know, like, I'm not writing like a Stephen King where I can just say, well, it's in this fucking made up town, but it's an Earth. You can kind of assume where things are. You can assume I put it in Missouri. You know, like, all I gotta do is a little bit of research. Or if I'm writing a true fucking story, like, I don't need to, like, I just gotta do research on things that already exist. The thing about fantasy is, like, I have that human story, then I have to, like, make this fucking world around it. And every time you get to a place, like, well, what do they think? What was their history? To influence the way that they react with the character. And you have to, like, constantly battle all this shit. So you go to a new place, like, what are they doing there? How long have they been there? Why are they there? You know, I could make something up at the moment, and I do at times. It might not seem like it, but I do. But that just creates problems to understand where people come from. When there's an issue in the real world, a tangible issue, let's take slavery, for instance. An issue in the world that's been going on for thousands of fucking years. This isn't a new thing. This isn't something that was about in the 1800s. Like, slavery has been around since the beginning of time, probably. There's always been a slave. I mean, there's still slaves now. We just changed the word. It's just like, you're not a slave anymore. But we are. It's just, you just word it a little bit differently. Take that issue. Think of how many minds have thought about it, made it better, made it worse, or did nothing. Like, how many people in the world talked about slavery? to which how many people created subcultures of it, like idea concepts of like what slavery is, what slavery isn't. When did it start? Where did it start? Slave classes, how did slaves live? And like all this stuff. How many minds have created that consciousness idea? How many people have a fucking opinion about it? There is so many minds, it's unfathomable. We're talking millions and millions and millions. And then we're not even talking about the people that are involved in it, like the people that are like, that had slaves, like what did they think that, like, okay, what's the best way to, you know, get results out of them? What's the best way to do this? And how many should you have? And how do you segregate them in case of, you don't want overpopulation? Like all these crazy thoughts that we can't fathom. How many minds went into that one concept of it's slavery. It's a word that defines an entire consciousness. That's the real world. When you're a writer, you have only this mind to like, what the fuck is slavery in the book? So you have to like sit and fathom like, well, all these elements and all these aspects of it, and all these different things, that it could, couldn't be, might be, should be, shouldn't be, how it works, what's the best results for fucking, you know, if a bunch of them get sick, and like how do you stop spreading of sicknesses and all that, like fucked up things. It's like one person, me, in my fantasy book, has to come up with that issue. I think we forget about that, you know, because we are used to fantasy that's on the fucking video games, which is where a lot of people enjoy it. Like there are a lot of people that still enjoy it in books. But if you think about video game fantasy, there's a developer team. There's a whole fucking team of people. Man, if I had 10 people to help me with this book, this fucker would be done by now. But you're doing it alone. There are aspects where I get help from Kevin and Jacob, and they shoot me ideas and opinions, but it's 3 of us. 2, 3, depending on the day. Sometimes just me, sometimes me and Jacob, sometimes 3 of us, or just sometimes me and Kevin. It's so limiting on a viewpoint of one subject. And I'm using one slavery because I don't even know, like, there are slaves in the book, but I've never really gave it a thought. But it's going to come up. In book 2, it's going to come up. It's going to be a fucking thing. So what do I have to do? I have to research. I have to look into this shit. I have to think about this. I have to get in the mindset of someone who's for it. That's like, it's so weird. It's like writing allows you have to be empathetic to be a writer. I'm like convinced at this point, because you have to go into like minds of people that everyone just wants to cast out. Everyone wants to just shadow, you know, their blame upon them and act out their, you know, fantasies upon these kind of people. I have to sit and go like, well, I mean, he's got a point. Like, it's so crazy to think about. Like, you have to allow yourself to be an open book to anything. If it comes up of like a rapist or something, I have to get in his mind and be like, well, like, let's see why he did what he did. I have to, or else the character's not fucking realistic. You know, I think modern writing, at least in the modern movies, which I'm not even sure anymore if people write that, if they have AI, because they're so shitty. But these modern movies, they don't do that. They have opinions about it. You need to believe this because this is bad, because this is bad, this is bad. Like, you need to stop thinking this because this and that. That's a stupid way to be. That's so ignorant to write that way. I'm trying to be authentic and giving a shadow or giving an idea to something that I'm not comfortable with. I'm not okay with writing about things that are hard, like fucked up to write about. But like I said last time, I have to do it. I have to cast a light upon that, and I have to look in the eyes of the people doing it and say, well, why would somebody do this? Why would someone choose to hurt another person? I've never been in a fight, right? Never been in a fight. Never. I punched one person in my life, and I had to be drunk and high at the same time, and the situation that it was. But other than that, I've never wanted to hit anybody. I've never been in a fight like that. I've never, like, I shot a gun one time and I did not like it. You know what I mean? That's the real me. I don't like hurting people, and I never want to hurt anyone. Even emotionally, I don't want to hurt people. But I have to write characters that have killed. You know, I have to write characters that, like, some characters that might relish in this shit. Some characters might see it as like, oh, well, there's no other choice. We have to. And he's got a little bit of, like, humanity about it, but he'll be willing to do it. That's hard. Like, I have to go into a whole other person and see why it's okay to kill. And I gotta write scenes of, like, people being fucking killed and shit, and I don't know. So I do research and watch, I'd have to watch videos of people dying to see what people do when they die. I've never been around people being fucking killed. I don't know what happens there and what it looks like if you witness it. I have no clue, and I have to fucking do that. And I wouldn't call it severely traumatizing, but it's jarring. It'll put me in a fucking mood for a little bit. You know, I have to think about, I have to explore depths of places that I myself am uncomfortable to go. And I think what that is now go back to the book, we talk about these scenes I have to write. We talk about book one where I'm just so hard to get involved. It's because it takes that, you know? Like, you could look at it from the outside like, you just gotta fucking do it. Sure, okay. But you don't even know, like, the amount of, like, mental gymnastics it takes to finish book one. Like I was saying at the beginning of this video, just like finishing those scenes that I don't even want to fucking get into because it's just a headache. That's why it's a headache, because it's like, I'm gonna write scenes about a person that's a fucking murderer. You know what I mean? It's like, now I gotta, like, sit here and, like, get into this grumpy space, and then I'm gonna be fucking pissed off the rest of the day because I'm channeling what this guy's feeling. He is not happy in that scene. I can't be happy writing it. I'm happily writing, like, and then he was fucking pissed. Like, no, I have to invoke this shit, which is why I don't want to write the scene. Because it's taking a lot. I can't pass that off to, like, a writer. Like, here, you do it. You know, you had time to recoup and recover and stuff, and you're in a good headspace right now. I can't do that. I have to do it myself. And that's why the book takes so fucking long, is because I go into such fucking depths with this. And it's not the whole book's like that. There are sections where it's fine. They're just walking around and talking. Or they're looking at stuff and saying, wow, that's cool. You know, like, there's normal scenes, don't get me wrong. It's not like the whole book's a fucking mess, but man, the chapters or the sections or the few pages that get dark, I have to get dark too. And it's really hard. And I think that's where my concept of how spirits work and how emotion is a spirit. I think that's got to be true because, man, accessing these parts, it accesses me. And I could take that and throw it in the world and use it as tools. I'm mad about this because I did that. I can take it anywhere I want now. I choose to hold on to it and try to release it where no one's around. This kind of darkness, this bad part that I have to channel. It's so fucking crazy to talk about, but it really works that way. It's like I got a bomb and I'm just, like, going off in the woods and just, like, well, it has to explode. I'm just going to make sure it's not around people. That's what I do with these dark energies of, like, okay, channel a murderer. And I got to sit here and channel it, and then I write it and everything, and then I feel like this is fucked and I don't like it. I can't give that to somebody. I have to kind of fucking just release it naturally. It's super intense, man. And I don't know any other way to do it besides going through it. I didn't mean to rhyme, but that happens sometimes. That'll happen. I swear to God. Like, I'll sound like, oh, you trying to make a clip? No, it happens, man. I do that a lot. Whenever I talk about something real, I start rhyming. I'm like, what is this? So yeah, that's why it's hard to write. And I'm just looking, like, at the scene here, the Martis scene. It's just gonna be so much, and it's only about 1,500 words. I gotta add to it, so it's gotta be more. It's just, it doesn't go to the place that allows, the reason I have to rewrite it is it's not, I don't think it's accurately portraying what the hero has got to go through the rest of the book. I threw it in there because I thought I needed something. It just doesn't feel right. It feels messy. I gotta fix it. So that's why it has to be rewritten. It's just like going forward. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense to the lore either. Like as I reread, I'm like, that doesn't really make sense according to the lore. And then what's happening? And I rushed through it. I just rushed through it. I wanted to get the scene over with because I didn't want to do it, and so I rushed through it. And then I rewrote it, and it's better. But as I rewrote it, I did it too much with stream of consciousness, and now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I have to make it make sense now. So I have to plot it out, which means I gotta sit and fucking use one of these boards and say, okay, what is really going on? Why is this happening? What are the consequences of it? How does magic work? How does this work? All this shit, and it's gonna take hours. It's gonna take fucking hours. You know, like, it's so, sometimes there's questions that arise that aren't as simple as like, well, maybe it's this. It's like, there's times where questions will arise and it's like, we gotta sit and think for a few hours and puzzle piece shit together and see if this all makes sense. And half the time it's like, nope, it doesn't make any sense. We gotta rewrite the entire section. Or other times it's like, thank God I found a way to connect it to everything. You never know what it'll do until you start doing it. Anything else to discuss? I don't even know what to call this. It's hard to write. I don't know. The writing process? I think I have a feel called that. The something of writing, what would I even call it? I don't know. Not pitfalls, that's kind of a dumb thing. The difficulties of writing, I guess. I mean, it's very simple. I try to keep it simple. Not complex. I'm not trying to be cute and clever with my titles. Like, oh wow, maybe he'll say that subjectively throughout it. Like, no, it's the difficulties of writing. It's difficult. Just like having intimate relations with your grandma and your mama when your dad's watching.